What if the story of America you were taught was only half the truth? We're told it's a story of freedom, democracy, and a beacon of hope. But behind that story lies a darker, more complex reality, a tale of power, war, and money. Long before Columbus, advanced civilizations thrived here. Their world was shattered by a European invasion driven not by ideals, but by greed. The foundation of early America's wealth was built on stolen land and the brutal system of slavery, creating a nation that preached freedom while practicing bondage. The American Revolution. It was as much about securing economic control for a new elite as it was about liberty. Westward expansion, framed as destiny, was a ruthless campaign of conquest. From the Civil War to the rise of corporations and 2 world wars, America's path to global dominance was forged in conflict and calculated strategy. This is the untold story of how a nation was built. Follow to see what they didn't teach you in school. What if the story of America you were taught was only half the truth? We learn about brave pioneers and the land of the free. But behind the familiar narrative lies a different story, one of power, war, and money. A story that explains why the world, and America itself, looks the way it does today. This isn't the history from your textbook. This is the story of how an empire was built. Long before the first European ships landed, this land was already home to hundreds of distinct nations. From the complex city of Cahokia, larger than London at the time, to the intricate irrigation systems of the ancestral pueblos, vibrant civilizations thrived. They had their own laws, economies, and deep spiritual connections to the land. But their world was about to be shattered. The arrival of Europeans wasn't a friendly encounter, it was an invasion, driven by a thirst for gold, glory, and God. They brought with them something far more deadly than weapons: disease. Smallpox and measles swept across the continent, wiping out an estimated 90% of the indigenous population. It was a demographic collapse on a scale never seen before, making conquest brutally efficient. Land was stolen, cultures were erased, and the survivors were forced into a new, violent reality. As the colonies grew, they needed a labor force to turn the vast stolen land into profit. The solution was one of history's greatest crimes: chattel slavery. This wasn't just a social evil, it was the economic engine of early America. Millions of Africans were kidnapped, stripped of their humanity, and forced into brutal labor. The cotton, tobacco, and sugar they produced didn't just enrich southern planters. It fueled the Industrial Revolution in the North and in Europe. The wealth of early America was built on the backs of enslaved people, creating a dark paradox at the heart of a nation supposedly founded on liberty. So, what about the American Revolution? We see it as a fight for freedom from a tyrannical king. While that's true, it was also a power grab. The colonial elite, wealthy merchants and landowners, were tired of British taxes cutting into their profits and London restricting their expansion westward onto native lands. They wanted to control their own economy and destiny. The fight for independence wasn't just about ideals. It was about who would hold the power and wealth in this new nation. Help from France was crucial, not just for victory, but for securing America's place on the world stage. When the war was won, the question became, who really benefited? The answer came with the Constitution. It's hailed as a brilliant document of freedom, but it was also designed to protect the interests of the powerful. The Founding Fathers, mostly wealthy, white, property-owning men, created a system that protected their assets. Crucially, it protected the institution of slavery and gave disproportionate power to slaveholding states. Women, Native Americans, and enslaved people were left out entirely. It was a legal framework that locked in power for a select few, setting the stage for centuries of conflict over who truly belongs in we the people. With a new government in place, the nation looked west. This wasn't peaceful settlement. It was a policy of aggressive expansion known as manifest destiny, the belief that America was divinely ordained to rule the continent. This ideology justified the forced removal of native nations like the tragic Trail of Tears, and a war with Mexico to seize territories that would become California, Texas, and the Southwest. America was building its own empire, not across oceans, but across its own continent through violence and displacement. But the nation's internal contradiction, free North, built on industry, and a slave South built on agriculture, could not hold. The Civil War wasn't just a moral crusade against slavery, it was an economic collision. The industrializing North wanted a system of free labor, high tariffs, and a strong central government. The agrarian South depended on enslaved labor and free trade. When these two systems could no longer coexist, the nation broke apart. The war that followed was the deadliest in American history, a brutal conflict that ultimately destroyed slavery but left deep, unhealed wounds of racial and regional division that fester to this day. In the ashes of the Civil War, a new America was forged. This was the Gilded Age, the era of the Industrial Revolution. Railroads crisscrossed the country, factories churned out goods, and cities exploded in size. But this incredible growth came at a cost. A new class of billionaires, the robber barons, built vast monopolies in steel, oil, and finance, amassing fortunes on a scale never before imagined. They controlled politicians and crushed competition. Meanwhile, millions of workers, including children, toiled in dangerous conditions for starvation wages. This period gave birth to modern American capitalism, with its staggering inequality and the constant struggle between corporate power and the rights of ordinary people. By the turn of the 20th century, America, now an industrial giant, was ready to step onto the world stage. The two world wars transformed the nation from a regional power into a global superpower. While Europe was devastated, American industry boomed, and its cities were untouched. At the end of World War II, the US held most of the world's gold, and the American dollar became the world's reserve currency. A new kind of empire was born, not one of direct colonies, but one of economic and military dominance. The age of American global leadership had begun. This new power was immediately tested in the Cold War, a 45-year ideological battle against the Soviet Union. This wasn't a direct war, but a global chess match played through proxy wars in places like Korea and Vietnam, covert operations, and a terrifying nuclear arms race. The conflict was fueled by fear and propaganda on both sides. It spurred incredible technological innovation, from the space race to the creation of the Internet. But it also led America to support dictators and overthrow democratically elected governments, all in the name of stopping communism. This era defined America's role as the world's policeman and shaped its relationship with the rest of the globe. Which brings us to today. The structures built over centuries are still with us. The legacy of slavery and westward expansion fuels ongoing racial and social divisions. Corporate influence over politics, born in the Gilded Age, is stronger than ever. The global military and economic system established after World War II is now being challenged by new powers. We live in an age of mass surveillance, media polarization, and deep internal conflict. Is the American empire in decline? Or is it simply evolving into a new form? The story of America is not a simple tale of good versus evil. It's a complex, often brutal, and deeply human story about the pursuit of power. So, the question is, after understanding this untold history, what do you believe? Is America the world's greatest experiment in freedom, or is it its most powerful and successful illusion? And more importantly, what does the future hold? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.